Thanks for joining this discussion for brainstorming on virtual orientations. I am Joran Liston, the Education Director for NACCU. Our facilitators today are Deborah Davis from the University of Houston and Janine Brooks from the University of Alabama. They will be sharing their plans and then they will ask you to share yours. You were all placed on mute when you joined, and if you would like to speak later, please unmute yourself and then remember to mute yourself after you speak, or raise your hand and one of us will go ahead and unmute you. And you may also ask questions in the chat window if you'd like. One quick reminder, if you would like to volunteer to serve on a committee, please sign up on the NACCU website, and we're gonna close those on, or we're gonna start assigning committees after May 8th. So if you'll sign up by then for a committee, I welcome all of you to please volunteer. And the link is in the chat. Now let's go ahead and get started with our discussion. Deborah?
Hi, everyone. My name is Deborah Davis, and I'm the Director of the Cougar Card Operations at the University of Houston, and we are a TouchNet school. We have over 46,000 students, and we can typically orient around 10 to 11,000 students each summer. We've moved to virtual orientation starting tomorrow for incoming freshmen and transfer students. Sessions will allow students 2 weeks to complete all of the modules, and they're scheduled until the end of July. In the Campus Life module, the Cougar Card has 2 sections. In the first section, we just talk generally about the uses of the card on our campus. And in the second section, we really hone in and focus on online photo submittal, because that's what we need in the virtual world. We use My Photo, and we recently upgraded to include the government ID and the signature, so that we have that, that method for verification. And then we're planning on mailing out the cards after confirmation of enrollment. We have a PeopleSoft query that we can use for both orientation, to confirm both orientation attendance and class enrollment. And so we're going to use that to hopefully help us avoid a lot of the waste and just not send the cards out until after the students have actually enrolled. And so Janine, you want to tell us what's happening at UA?
Yes, will do. We offer the action card, and we are a mobile card school, so we are taking advantage of the kind of no contact self-service aspects of mobile card. We are in a mid-sized city, because I think we were just talking about this earlier, that your environment will dictate a lot about how you have to handle certain things. In our environment, we don't have any kind of high numbers of COVID, and it's kind of a mid-sized city. So pre-orientation, the students, as soon as they sign up for orientation, which actually opened up in February, they start getting communications that have a checklist, and we're one of the first items on that checklist. So we open up our online photo and ID verification system in February, and on there, once we approve both their ID check and their photo, they receive an approval email. When they get that approval email, then they can start provisioning for mobile card. So they really can have their credential completely done before they were even coming to a regular orientation, but this is kind of helpful for us with virtual. If a student needs a card, it is noted in there they will need to request. So if mobile card is simply not an option for them, they'll need to request an appointment. We have a very small office area. In the past, we've always been able to give out the cards at their orientation sessions, which were scattered throughout the summer. And so we were limited to more 300 to 400 cards at a time. We'd be doing about 8,500 cards. So cards are only if you are not able to do the mobile card. And one of the reasons it's really important that they do the mobile card is they need their card immediately the day of move-in to get into their residence halls and meal plans and their dining dollars. So we want to make sure that they have access to food in their room. And by doing the mobile card, they can do that. So again, we're trying to go for the no contact, all self-service type credential. And for what we're doing for their actual orientation session, it's modules, just like Deborah was talking about. It's a module based. We are one of the earlier modules, just like we are in the checklist. They're kind of following down the checklist. And what we put in our module, these are everything's submitted. We're not having to do one each time. It's not live in a sense. The parent orientation was actually recorded, and the student orientation is more a mix of PowerPoint slides with minimal content on them. The idea is we're driving them to our website where they have the detailed information. And then we are also interspersing it with some videos. We have some use case video. We have one that explains the difference between a dining dollars and Bama Cash, so your required dining fund versus your voluntary fund. We also have one that if they have not already provision their mobile credential, we do have one that goes over how to download Duo for multi-factor authentication to get into online photo, and how to go through all those steps. So we tried to use some video in there too. We figured there's going to be a lot of PowerPoint, so video might make it a little more entertaining for them. There will be some questions that they answer at the end to garner that they absorb the information they just read, and that allows them to move on to the next module. And that next module is food service. Since we kind of overlap each other in several areas, food service will pick up some of the activity and then just flow into the rest of theirs. So that's how we're working. So Deborah, you want to get us started?
Okay, I had to mute myself. The lawn guy is out there, so hopefully he'll move on. So I think most, if not all, institutions have decided to hold virtual orientation. And like Janine said, it's very important on what your environment looks like as we all are starting to prepare for what we're going to do for the fall semester. But it sounds like we're at least consistent on, we know we got to have orientation still, no matter what the size of your institution is. And right now, virtual seems to be the way that most of us are deciding to go. So who else would like to share what's happening on their campus?
And I think Deborah, there was one question too, if right now while we're waiting to see who might want to share. They wanted to know how you're handling that additional cost.
Yes, so in sending out our cards, you're right, that is going to be additional cost for us, but we've gone through and we've looked at other areas where we can cut, like we were doing lanyards and card holders and buying swag for the physical orientations. And so we looked where we can make some cuts initially to take over that cost. And we hope to work with our campus delivery office and do it out in bulk mail, which will provide a savings for us as well. So we'll work through our campus delivery department to help us get those addressed and mailed out.
And then they also asked, are you concerned with wrong addresses?
Yes, I am very concerned with wrong addresses. We have a campaign going on for, especially for the incoming students when we're starting to communicate with them, is to make sure that they have their address correct in PeopleSoft. I'm very concerned with wrong addresses. And so again, I'm going to be working with our delivery services on how to craft that message, because they know what the U.S. Post Office is looking for in addresses. You know, you got to have the apartment number. We did some mailing out during our recarding, and we got mail back because they just entered the address of an apartment complex. And so you got to have the exact number so you can get in the right box. And so we're also working with them. They have a database that they can run it through and pull out the bad addresses. And then we can go back to those folks and say, hey, you had a wrong address. Can you make sure that it's correct? So we won't mail the ones that get kicked out of the system. But yes, always a risk of having a bad address, because there's just so many different ways that people can think that it's correct and the U.S. Post Office will say no. And then yes, mailing out the time of the cards is very time consuming. We are working with our student staff to help us to confirm the addresses. And again, with our delivery team, they'll work with their team to help us stuff the envelopes, if you will, till we get them out. So it is time consuming. It's between my office and our delivery office that helps us get that project done.
Hi, everyone. So at Whitewater, the new part for us this year is going to be the online photo submission. We're hoping to have that installed and running perhaps by the end of May. I'm waiting for confirmation. The paperwork has gone through this week to get that project moving. The distribution of the cards, we never even had a chance to move away from our previous 3 years model, which was mail the cards out to them. It had been in our budget. We had taken it out because we thought we were planning that for this year it was going to be hand the cards out. There had been some changes implemented at the afternoon part of a registration day. We were going to hand the cards out because they would all be queued up in a line, and nobody can do lines anymore, as we know. So that part's out the window. What we're anticipating doing is waiting until after their virtual registration day, their virtual orientation day, and then send them the instructions after we're configured, but then we'll email them the instructions to their campus email account on submitting their photo. It will include them. They'll be required to submit a government photo as well. And then once we have those pictures captured and approved, then we'll batch print for that previous SOAR group, usually about 220. And then we're going to do what we've done the last 3 summers, package them up in an envelope with additional materials about the card, the different accounts that are attached to it, some additional dining information, and we're going to mail it all out to them in batches through the course of the summer. So the new part will be online photo submission, but the old part, what we've already got processes down for, is mailing the cards out. We've had very few of single-digit, probably 2-3% maybe of envelopes with cards that are returned to the office with an incorrect address. So in our case, at least historically, the last 3 years, the students have been keeping their permanent address up to date. That's the one we capture from PeopleSoft and do a mail merge into a cover letter and package it all up with student labor at our office, and away it goes.
Good deal. Thank you. A couple more questions have popped up in the chat box. One question is anyone doing a virtual information fair?
We're going to try that for a first time also. It'll be a virtual presentation, and there will also be virtual information sessions. And the question came from one of my 2 staff members at the card office yesterday, seeing the posting about chat bots. And so I'm asking around campus if any offices have a chat bot already that we haven't heard about, and see if we can piggyback off of that.
Next question came, are the cards active when they are mailed? Dave, our cards are active when we mail them out. How about you?
No, we don't do any kind of event or activity or privilege or meal plan assignments until basically a week before they move in. So all they're going to have when they get their card is a card. It won't do anything for them until that week before move in.
Okay. How do you handle if the card is not received by the student? Is the card changed, or does your office eat that cost? Well, right now I haven't experienced that. Dave, you've been mailing for a couple of years, quite a few years now. How do you handle if the card is not received by the student?
We've usually been able to do a little bit of tracking on it. It's so few. I mean, we're talking a dozen or less. We just eat the cost. It's not that much. When I've got a spreadsheet configured, doing a rough estimate using cost accounting principles, and it's basically $7 a card. Not even quite that this day and age. It's not worth the hassle. It's not worth making them feel bad to say, oh, sorry, we don't know what happened. The post office lost it for you. So we just eat the cost on it. But honestly, I think it's 10 or less per school year for the last 3 or 4 years.
That's a good statistic. That's a good statistic. Is anyone else doing any kind of virtual information fairs or want to share what's happening if they've been previously mailing their cards?
I'll speak. I've been doing a bunch of virtual fairs recently, and I'm doing them with Becky, University of Rhode Island. I've been working with Housing and Res Life, and we've been talking. I've probably done 6 of them now. And I mean, I'm also dining services, so I've been talking a lot about the meal plans in our RAM account and whatnot. But I've also gone over a little bit about how we're going to be doing this whole online photo submission situation, which it's supposed to go live tomorrow, and it's still not 100%, and it's more on universities, my side of it, because we're going to use the GET photo submission process, and we're trying to get a single sign-on. And that's where the little bit of a holdup is. So today I'm panicking because I don't have it 100% ready to go for tomorrow. So I need a Hail Mary pass thrown to me so we can make this work. So everybody keep their fingers crossed for that. But yeah, I've been getting a lot of questions and have during these virtual webinars. I've been doing them at like 7 o'clock at night with students and parents, sometimes in the morning, sometimes in the afternoon. And they have been very, very helpful. Getting a lot of feedback from people too, saying, you know, this is great. You're actually make me feel super welcome there. I can't wait to come and stuff like that. So that's been one positive thing.
Nice. Thank you for sharing that.
Sure.
VSU just formed a task force to work with virtual orientation, as such questions of how can we make it a success are being circulated. Do you think we're too far behind? I don't think so, because I mean, we're all just trying to learn as we're being thrown with these things. It's very fluid, and as they're coming in, and so I don't think that you're too far behind, because at least now you're starting to discuss it, and I'm hoping that everyone will just be patient at our institutions as we're trying to learn and figure out our new environments. So I don't think you're too far behind. What do you think, Janine?
No, I really don't either. I think you're going to be okay. The reason probably I'm saying that is because we basically had a week and a half to get our materials together and submitted. So it really does depend. As long as you've got a little bit of time before your first sessions, I think you're going to be fine. I think from everyone that I talk to, you're using your current materials. You may have to update them a little bit, your websites, a PowerPoint. If you're like us, our videographer, they got overwhelmed. And so you basically had to use any videos that you already had, because they simply could not make all the videos that all of a sudden everyone wanted to include. So you're using current materials. It's just how it's bundled together and delivered to the student. My opinion. Anyone else like to speak up, please?
Okay, next question. Wendy is asking, where will the copies of the government ID be stored? We're using my photo, and once we go through and make the approval, it releases out of the system. We're not storing or holding any government IDs in the my photo application.
Yeah, I was just typing a response to that too. That was one of the absolute requirements for us. Any ID document is there until we approve and deny, and we approve and deny Monday through Fridays. So they're not in there, and so we're doing it every day to try to minimize the amount of time that ID document, and it's also under multi-factor authentication. So you need Duo and your login to the portal, your BAMA login, to be able to upload the documents. Whether we approve or deny it, it is electronically deleted, and we only retain the photo after that. So that's how we're handling it.
Yeah, same here. When you go into my photo, you have to go in through the single sign-on authentication. It's behind in our intranet. So yeah, we're not storing it. And then there's a question of how are you capturing a government issued ID? Does anybody else want to chime in on any other software that they're using and how they capture those IDs and what they're doing with them after they make the approval or denial?
I may
William,
talk too much, but I was going to just say, if ours is an internal system, so it's not vendor related, it's internal, but we made sure that we talked with our security officers and IT, that we talked with our Red Flags group, that we talked with even with public safety. We just want to make sure everyone was comfortable with what we were doing. So we would recommend that if you have an internal system, or even with you're working with the vendor, you want to make sure that it works with what will make your managers in those areas happy.
Hi, this is Elizabeth Sampson. We had my photo and we were going to have IDs uploaded, driver's license, but our IT department shut that down. They did not want anything to be uploaded, even if it was going to be deleted on approval or denial of the photo. We are now using CloudCard instead as our upload. So far, I have used Zoom to authenticate remote faculty, but I don't see using Zoom for the entering class of, 7,000, 8,000 students. So for those of you who are not uploading government issued identification cards or passports, what are you guys doing to authenticate someone when they upload a photo?
Anybody?
Is there no one in our situation? So everybody is uploading driver's license, passport, that type thing.
I can talk to this. Matt Camino, University of the Pacific. So we are using CloudCard to upload photos, and we have been for several years at this point. And we're currently not uploading government IDs. So we're in the same boat, and we are actually. I'm here hoping other people had ideas because we're working through it. Part of our discussion is, rather than being the central point where everyone comes to in August, because our June orientations have been moved virtual, and we were talking about having students back on campus in August, and they usually would come to our office to pick up. Well, I don't need 1,000 people converging on the same spot at once. So we're talking about maybe distributing as much as we can out to individual residence halls and deputizing those members of our housing office to check IDs and verify who people are coming in, and then figuring out what we do with the commuter students and whether we can break it down by academic groups or something, just to narrow the amount of people that would be converging on one place at the same time. So we're in discussions with our orientation group right now to figure out how this is going to go forward, how Welcome Week's going to work in August. Our interim president just sent an email out communication the other day talking about how we are expecting to welcome people on campus. We're a small school. We don't have massive classroom sizes, and we are expected to have people on campus in August for now. But, being a California school, we're going to be listening to our governor and working with, what we can come that time. So yeah, I'm here for ideas, but right now we're just trying to figure out how to check IDs in person when people arrive to campus.
Thanks, Matt.
So sorry, Melinda with UNC Chapel Hill, and we are currently trying to get CloudCard to upload photos and and specifically for the upload of ID also, or for verification. Right now we're using the Get app in Seaboard and uploading the photos that way. And then we have always checked IDs when the student comes in the door. And so we're in the same boat kind of as a lot of people here. And I think hopefully we can get the CloudCard stuff going. Our security is looking at it right now. If not, then we're going to try and do a distributed system through all of our dorms and stuff like that, so that as they're coming in and checking into their dorm, they can also get their ID. We do have a form right now because of all the graduate schools that don't want to bring their kids or their students over and then bring them back and then during their orientation. And so what we do is we send someone over, they take pictures, have the cards printing as they go, and then we deliver. And then we just bring a signed document that says, I am checking IDs and taking delivery of the cards that were printed for you. They sign that, and that's, like you said, deputizing them to. And so then it's a, you checked it or you supposedly checked it. And we also have the students sign their terms and conditions while they're picking up their card. So it's just a big form that says, I've seen the terms and conditions and agree to it. And then they just sign right by their name.
Mike Holvestall from the University of Notre Dame. We do a very similar to what Melinda just said. This last year we did it that way, where we distributed all the cards to the residence halls. All of the rectors that are in charge of the halls had to sign a form that said that they understand that all the terms and conditions and that they need to check an ID. But, you know, moving forward, we definitely have to think through how we're going to do our transfers and grad students, so we don't have big groups in the card office.
Okay, I'll go back to the questions in our chat. Can anyone speak to how the identity verification component of My Photo works? Yeah, I can speak to that. I just was testing that last week. So you go through the regular, your regular process of first you upload your photo. And of course you have to meet all of the parameters, clear background, nothing obstructing your face. Then once you upload that, it comes up with a picture, with your picture that you uploaded and a mock-up of our ID and does it look like that, and does it look okay, and is your picture okay? You submit, you say yes, you submit that photo. Then the next step is to upload your government issued ID. And again, it'll give you a picture of, does it look like this, to make sure that it is a, you know, a clear, valid picture so that we can see the photo and the name and all of that. And then once you confirm that, then you click yes. And then the next screen is a signature screen where you're signing to confirm your ID that you just presented, and then you hit submit. And then we, on the other side at the campus, we get the picture that was submitted for your ID, and then we get the government issued ID, and then we go through the process of either approving or denying it. And once we're done with our administrative process, the government ID is deleted from the system, and then we can move forward. And if it's approved, then of course we move forward and print the card. If it's denied, the student has to start all over again through the whole process to submit an acceptable photo. And William, you have a great question saying, for card offices that are considering mailing out IDs, have you considered sharing the postage cost with your orientation programs? And is anyone partnering with orientation or parking and transportation or any other areas in your system to help fray the cost of the postal? And William, I don't know if our orientation is actually mailing out anything, but I'm certainly going to ask that question. So thank you for that. That's a good question. Next question. Again, this is about what are the distribution plans for ID cards that have not been mailed. We just had a couple of folks speak to that, working in tandem with their housing departments to break them up by, I guess, locations and making the housing units deputized, as it was said earlier, and to have them responsible for the cards for their residents. And again, breaking them down perhaps by academic colleges will be another way that was also discussed. Does anyone have any other ways of how they're thinking outside of the box to get our cards distributed so we won't have so many folks piling into our usually small card offices?
Yeah, at the University of Calgary, we just started talking about this. We don't do summer orientations like American schools tend to do. So we're looking at everyone arriving on campus at once in the fall. Normally we'd have like 9,000 new students. So who knows what that's going to look like this year. Besides the very obvious, give them to residents and let residents hand those out. We would trust residents to check IDs since they're doing that to make sure the right student is moving into the right room. So I'm not concerned about that. The other idea that we've come up with is, since campus and the province have suspended any meetings or activities or gatherings, we have meeting spaces on campus that are not being used. So what we're talking about doing is in the online photos, first securing spaces, then in the your card has been printed email, it would say, if your last name starts with this, you need to go to this room. We will be there on these days from these times. You know, there'll be lines on the floor. And then what I'm imagining for the staff is they'd have a desk with a plexi. So the card holder would come up, show their ID through the plexi. They could then pull the card, place it on a secondary table, and then the person could grab it on their way out. I think that might be a way to do it. There's always concerns that people won't read and will go to the wrong room, but
of course,
at a certain point, you can only provide so many directions, right? So we were talking about doing something like that and hoping, if this is what we do, to secure 4 to 6 spaces so that way we'd be able to space everyone out. And even if there is a lineup that forms for online photo pickup, since we don't have any signature component, it moves really quickly. So I wouldn't be too worried about there being a gathering for a very long time.
I like the idea of using unused meeting space. That's a great use of campus resources. So that's really good.
Yeah, and especially the ones we're thinking of are spaces that would have 2 doors so that you can have a defined entrance and a defined exit and have a very clear path through it so that whoever's in the room isn't in there with people bottlenecking.
Yeah, that sounds like a good plan.
Thanks.
One extra thing that I might recommend, we previously did the same thing. One thing that over time we discovered would help a lot is to have some sort of walkie-talkie system that each one of those locations is participating on. Our orientation department was already doing that, so we could kind of ask to be part of that and get a few extra. And then that way, if a card is in the wrong spot, you can speak out to the other locations and figure out where it is, or whatever kind of communication, so that you're not having to pick up the phone and call each location. Since we used to decentralize, distribute through all of the residence halls and then some separate locations for commuter students, we would find that, you know, a card got filed into the wrong spot at some point in time. And rather than having to call around to every location trying to figure out where the card is, that walkie-talkie system where everybody was listening, and, you know, I could just reach out and say, hey, we're looking for a card for this person. Let me know if it's in your box. And then that person would let us know. I also had an extra student employee who would be a runner for me, to go to that location, pick up the card and take it to wherever the student was, so that they didn't have to stop their whole process and, you know, go to some place where they didn't need to be and all that kind of stuff. So the walkie-talkie really helped for us.
We do something like that. We use a website called Slack, which I've heard that my campus IT frowns upon, but they just introduced Microsoft Teams. But if you don't tell your campus IT, Slack just for that 1 or a couple days is a wonderful way to do that, because you can also have different chats within it for your full-time staff and then for everybody.
I was just going to piggyback off of what Lynn said. This is Keisha from American University. And so part of my interest in hearing this is we've done the accordion of how we distribute. Before my office or department got set up, everything was managed out of housing. So our one card office was part of the housing department. So we used to distribute everything at the residence halls. And over the years, we've learned, once my department was set and we're now separate from housing, we've kind of had to figure out how we best practice, make that work, particularly what you were saying, Lynn, cards go missing. our institution is moving more towards a centralized move-in experience. And so we use our student center as a main place, but our cards are still being distributed by the residence halls, and we still have issues where cards go missing. And our team is a team of 5 full-time staff members, and so we're very limited to the volume of students that we have coming in. So I like this idea. We've kind of gone back and forth about this deputization piece. We have our academic units distribute for their orientations, but we still can't really thread the needle for the volume of, and it's largely a communication issue until the university makes a standard on the overall process and all of those considerations. We find particularly for like our graduate students and professional students, they don't know where their card is because we've been the first form of communication and the academic unit hasn't really communicated, you will meet us on orientation for this particular need. One of the opportunities I think we have is that we also distribute a Metro card. So like our public transportation system, we American University, not One Card and Dining Services. And that Metro card distribution happens in our student union, happens during move-in, and requires either the university ID or a government issued ID. So if we could figure out how we balance those resources and have it be one central pickup for both your One Card and the university Metro card, I think that would be how we thread that needle. It's ripe for the conversation now, given where we are. But I think those are some of the takeaways that I'm hoping to gain, but also can lend as feedback as well.
Keisha, I was just reading your note that you wrote about the CDC guidelines. I think that is really important for all of us too. I just had to write up my plan because we did say that we will distribute if a student specifically requests a physical card. And I had to write up, you know, how are we going to protect all the parties involved? The spacing, you know, the reminder posters about looking for symptoms, the distancing, you know, we can all put something cute on the ground that can do the, you know, based on our mascot or something, but also how often we're going to wipe down and the plexiglass, and then finding we're struggling a little bit. We might actually have to make our own masks. That's why, I mean, it's hard to get the cloth masks that can be washed and sanitized, but there's so much to think about now with card distribution too. So I thought your comment about CDC guidelines was really important to this conversation. Thank you.
So Janine, on the mask, our promotional department they're thinking that they can get their hands on masks. And so I'm just waiting to hear back from them because they should be able to get, you know, a big quantity, and they will, of course, they'll sell them because it's all about the budget. But they told me earlier this week that they're working on getting their hands on cloth masks.
Yeah. I think cloth masks are a real key because they can be washed.
Right.
Some of what we've been provided so far is really one-use masks, and so that would be harder. But it is good to start thinking about supplies right now because everyone's going to be looking for them. So that's why we were trying to get all our supplies in. Right. And at this point in time, I could not get cloth masks. They had already distributed quite a few of them. So
yeah.
And speaking of masks, our facilities department just sent out a list yesterday where they can order them in large quantities.
Yes.
And they are asking each unit to stipulate exactly how many they would need. Matter of fact, the cloth masks that you're speaking of are $10 each. They are rewashable, reusable, and they would be able to last us. So I just put on there that I want 2 each for the upcoming semester for each person in the department. They are also doing the disposable masks, and I believe they were coming in quantities of 100 a pack, but facilities is getting them for the whole university. They've sent out a distribution.
Hello. Yeah, Rob.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm a new associate member. My company does promotional products. Dawn and Crystal recruited me earlier this year. And my company, I can get you all customized masks. Customized cloth, neoprene, all sorts of different things.
How quickly?
Dawn personally has known me for what, 15, 20 years, Dawn? And Crystal met me at a conference where she was assigned. John Ogle has also known me for quite a long time. So I would be honored to help out any of you getting logoed or non-logoed masks and give you information, whether it's it from my company or somebody else's. I mean, obviously I would prefer you get it from me, but I'd be honored to share information with you folks.
How quickly?
How quickly? Probably within, I mean, there are some that I could get that are manufactured within 3 to 5 days.
Very good. Yeah. Yeah. So,
and Dawn admittedly said, because she saw me raise my hand, and she's like, you better jump in on this one. But I would be, you know, I'll type my email in the chat, and I see, so that you can all reach out to me directly if you'd like.
Okay, thank you.
And I was looking forward to being at your at the conference that didn't happen. I did. Was supposed to be there. Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
Rob, that is a great idea. Where I got my mask is through an alumni. We have fabric with our logos on it at all our fabric stores, and she made several NDSU masks, the tie kind.
Yeah, I know Dr. Kim Bremer at your school.
Ah, wonderful.
Okay, I'm gonna mute myself. Unless I'm called on.
There was a question on, well, it's more of a question statement. If we're not able to be back on campus until August or September, how do we go about mailing the cards from then? From there, if we get back so late before the semester is actually about to start. On our campus, we go into the office every Monday, and our delivery department works every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So we're not completely shut down. We're kind of a quasi-essential staff. And so we are on our campuses. And so we plan on using our Mondays to get our cards going out for the mailing, because we are on campus at some point during the summer. I don't see Dave anymore. I was going to ask him what is his campus going to do, if they're on campus or not, since they've already been mailing cards out to their students.
Deborah, we haven't started the mailing yet. That probably won't happen till, I'm going to guess, perhaps early or mid-June. They have, basically our campus status right now is to discourage as many people as possible from being on campus, encouraging as many of us as possible to work from home like I have been. But the two office staff for the card office have been working, their desks are like 10 feet, 12 feet apart. And they've been working every day through this time period. One of them was working half days so that she can help with family childcare. But the other staff member is working full-time, 40 hours a week. She's much more comfortable working at her office. She's got all her resources. And so as long as we're still allowed to at least have some access to the office between the three of us, somebody's there and we're managing things that way, we'll continue to adapt as necessary. But at this point, it's worked out okay for us. And that's why we're semi-confident that the mailing program that we'll use again will probably be pretty efficient. We'll just have fewer people in the office than we've had in the past. We used to require all our student employees to assist us on orientation days. This year, without orientation days, all online photo submission, then we'll probably only need 1 or 2 on a given day, but that'll be one of their main tasks then.
Okay.
Yeah, I would just note, this is Keisha from American again. We only go into the office once a week by appointment only right now. So our entire team is working remotely, except for we do have our dining partners because we have emergency housing students currently. But we're anticipating that on the days that we are scheduled to go in, and probably if we don't have appointments, we're going to use that time to maximize our printing. We do have the ability, if need be, I'm looking at even bringing one of our badge printers like to a home, if that is also a space for us to be able to pre-print cards. But we have a little bit of distance. Our checklist for online photo submissions doesn't start until June after our deposit deadline. So it gives us a little bit of time, but we're also looking at how we can remote print. I think the comment that you made, Dave, and even thinking about my comment about the CDC piece, though, is even looking and evaluating how our operations and our offices are running as we look forward to what guidelines and guidance is being set. I think about the fact that maybe our entire team can't be in our office. And even though we're small, recognizing that it's a small space that we have. So also keeping that in mind when we think about how many people we can allow to enter a space and what that might look like. So there's a lot of interesting questions to keep asking as it relates to sort of what the new normal of operations will be, and even how we might think creatively just about how we manage our staffing models, et cetera. So yeah.
So we have True Credential, and we actually can remote print now, which is awesome. And that's actually helped a lot because we actually gave access to our orientation group for employees, and they, at employee orientation, they take pictures of the folks and print the cards, and then all we have to do is deliver them. So that's been kind of nice because we know they're checking IDs and stuff like that. And we're talking about, of course, getting the plexis in front of the windows and all that fun stuff. So that's how we're processing this so far.
Rob, a question has popped up in the chat. They said, along with providing the mask, are you providing proper training on use and wear, especially for the reusable mask?
That would be very difficult, but I could try. Being that the masks, I mean, they generally go around over the ears and behind, so they're pretty self-explanatory because these are not specifically the N95s and can. This is more, because those are not, this is more of a, these could be more like a bandana or other types of material. It is not a true safety mask. It's not PPP.
I think there are probably instructions on the CDC website. I think I've seen that before on how to properly take them off, because they, you know, I've seen news where they said people are pulling them and wearing them up under their neck. That's not correct, and things like that. So I think there could be something on the CDC website on training for how to use the mask, proper wear and care for them.
Yes, Deborah, I would agree. I saw someone today, I was shipping out from the UPS, and they basically were wearing a mask, like a surgical style, not a PPP, and yet it was underneath their nose. And all I wanted to do was lecture the person, and I showed restraint.
I would think your health and environmental safety departments on campus too would have some direction there too for you. Because yes, that's actually who my plan was to reach out to. I have not done it yet though, because I've not been wearing masks. Again, it kind of depends on what your current environment is like in your community. And I certainly could not train. So hopefully our health and environmental services departments are available for training.
Right, I agree, Janine. There probably is a lot of resources on our campuses that they're probably still shoring up and getting together, especially today as today is April 30th, and that's the end of the countrywide stay home work safe ordinance expires today, and most cities are starting to already reopen. And so I think, and I know on our case, in our campus, we've been so busy with trying to function in the new environment that we are just now starting to think, oh yeah, what does opening up really look like? And so we're looking at the checklist from the CDC and trying to, how do we make that fit in our individual office environments and on the campus as a whole? Lori has asked, do you reject, oh, that was privately, but I'm gonna go ahead and answer it, Lori. So I'm still learning Zoom. It says, do we reject photos because the upload doesn't match the government ID? We just implemented it, Lori, so we haven't, and like our orientation start tomorrow. So the only ones we've been accepting and rejecting have been from our test group, which has been me and my staff and some of our IT folks. So I would assume that we have to be careful of that because the looks are so fluid nowadays. You may not look exactly like you looked when you took your official government ID. So you have to be probably a little fluid, I would say, and you know, study them carefully to make sure that it is the same person. But I'm sure that they're going to look a lot different with the photos that they take with the selfies as opposed to the photos that's going to be on those government IDs. Melinda, can you share the software that you just mentioned for the remote printing?
Oh, I'm sorry, it's True Credential.
True Credential.
I think that there are actually two of them out right now. True Credential is for the, oh dear Lord, data card, sorry. And then there's the HID printers, and I forgot what theirs is called.
Okay. Okay, everyone, we're getting close to time, about 6 minutes left in our session. Does anybody have anything else they want to add? Okay, well, then we'll go ahead and wrap it up. Thank you everyone for attending and participating. Joran, do you have any closing words?
Of course, I always have closing words.
I know.
Thank you. Thank you, Janine and Deborah. This was just a great discussion. Thank you for facilitating it. Thank you all for participating. Great input. Really appreciate it. If you have a topic you would like us to cover, please let me know, and happy to put some facilitators together. If you would like to offer to facilitate, you can see this is pretty easy. Everybody's become used to the Zoom environment. So thank you all for joining.